Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our session on food beverages. And without any further ado, may I request you all to kindly join me with a huge round of applause, inviting all our distinguished speakers onto the stage. May I invite on stage Mr. Ashwin Bhadri, who's the founder and CEO, Equinox Lab. Warm welcome to you, sir. We can bring in some more energy, ladies and gentlemen. Just right in the first half of the day, it can bring a huge amount of encouragement to us. May we also invite Aayushi Khandelwal, who is the co-founder, Anveshan. We've been indicated that Mr. Bharat Sethi will join us in few moments from now. And may I now request Mr. Aditya Bagri, who's the director, Bagrry, to kindly join us onto the stage. And may we also request Mr. Tanul Rustagi, who's the co-founder, Innobev, to kindly join us onto the stage. As mentioned earlier, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bharat Sethi will join us in few moments from now. He's the founder, Rage Coffee. And without any further delay, may I request the moderator of the session, Mr. Ashwin Bhadri, to kindly take over.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys are having a fantastic time. This is the first time I'm coming for CMPL Delhi, and I'm loving the energy. I'm loving the participation. I'm loving that all the seats are almost full. That's incredible. I think it goes to show how important knowledge sharing is, and as people in the food industry and contract manufacturing industry for different verticals, if people take out time to come and listen to something this way, it always is very encouraging to see that people want to learn so much more. And today's topic is quality meets consciousness, and I think we are at a very relevant time to discuss something this way, because today I think consumers are a lot more quality conscious than ever before, thanks to people like Food Farmer and so many other people and brands who are putting time, money and effort to bring better products to the market, to bring cleaner labels to the market. I think today FSSAI is also playing a very large role in making sure that there's a lot of transparency, so that anyone who's consuming any product is very well aware of what are they consuming, right? So there's a small regulation that came out a few years ago, and I think you would have seen an impact of that today. When you go to restaurants, some of the restaurants, you'll start seeing nutrition information, you'll start seeing allergen information. This started out about 4.5-5 years ago as a brainstorming session with me and the then CEO. And he was very keen that he's like, hey, all manufactured products, like the products he makes, nutrition labels are mandatory, right? But he's like, when people eat out in restaurants, they have no idea what they're putting in their body. Right, so this is a very forward-thinking step that they took. Even though it's not applicable to everyone, it's only applicable to restaurants that have more than 10 outlets or a central license. Even smaller brands have started doing it because they started realizing that people want to understand what are they consuming. Right, so if it's a 800-calorie chole bhature, many people are thinking, if I show calories, nobody's going to have chole bhature because so high in calories. But it doesn't affect consumption. People are just more aware. Two, people also started leveraging the new regulations to start making more money. What I mean by that is the same restaurants, who were afraid of putting nutrition information, they started creating menus with nutrition information which are healthier. And guess what? When it's a little healthier, you can charge a little bit of premium and get away with it. And they actually started leveraging compliances, to make more money. With that, let me get started, with Aayushi, who runs Anveshan. Aayushi, today, I think consumers are extremely aware of what goes on labels, right? So how do you communicate the right balance between transparency, information, and simplicity to build trust?
Thanks, Ashwin, and thanks, CMPL for giving us the opportunity to share our experiences. In terms of communicating with the consumers through labels, I think the category that we are into, ghee and oils, and especially premium ghee and oils, where people are paying more and they are looking for, pure products. They are asking, ye pure hai, ye authentic hai. So there are, I think, 3-4 things which are important. So one is how do you convey the authenticity? So for us, the process of manufacturing is very important for the quality, right? So for example, if somebody is buying a regular refined oil from the market, how is this different from a cold pressed oil? So we clearly mentioned the process, right? That this is a wood pressed coconut oil, for example. Second is the quality of the raw material going inside the product becomes very, very crucial. So for example, we source our coconuts, let's say from Polachi in Tamil Nadu, and these are sulfur-free coconuts. So we mention these things clearly on the front side of the label. Second is, apart from your raw material, what are the other things going inside the product? So if somebody is not using a preservative or any kind of stabilizers, so that is very important to mention in the ingredients. And apart from that, because this is comparatively a new category, people are not very aware of, let's say, how to use which cold pressed oil. Can you use it for deep frying, or can you only use it for, let's say, salad dressings? So putting up all those points at one side of the label, and also the benefits of it, right? That it would be lighter on your gut, or you can just cook a lot of food with lesser amount of oil. So all that is conveyed very seamlessly in the label. Yes.
So when you create innovative products, I think one of the bigger challenges becomes educating consumers on what is that benefit, right? So because many times, like, the word cold pressed has now been around for, I think, close to a decade, but still a common consumer doesn't know the benefit of using cold pressed oil, right? So I think that's what you have been putting on packaging, and today the claims that people make on packaging have become very important. Aditya, my next question is to you, right? So today claims like no added sugar, high fiber are becoming very commonplace, right? So how does Bagrry's ensure that the labels that are there are, they're genuine, that your claims are verified, or even at the remaining industry, right? And how do you build consumer trust when you put up claims like this?
So, Ashwin, I think, that's a very pertinent question, and that's something which I think over a period of time has become more and more complex. And the reason is because I feel, especially in recent years, and as a brand, we've been around since the early 90s. So we started doing products which were extremely high in fiber and focused purely on products which had significant nutritive value, which to some degree or to a large degree actually made a significant impact in our consumer's life. Like, the thesis behind Bagrry's is that everything we make should have a positive impact on the consumer's life and lifestyle. And it's not just driven by a perception or a halo of, seeming healthy, but genuinely delivers functional value that can add in a small way, to someone's lifestyle. So products like Wheat Bran, for example, which is purely a fiber additive, is something that we created. Oats as a category, or muesli as a category, and most of these played big on fiber. They played big on having options which were without added sugar. The challenge we see today is that the ecosystem is filled with a bunch of players that come from various cohorts, right? You have large multinationals with big regulatory teams. Most of these regulatory teams are well trained in making sure that they're extremely compliant with the laws of the land. On the other hand, there's also a great amount of engineering of claims that happen, right? So there's an entire focus to create claims. As a family-run business, we've been relatively on the sincere side of things, that we wanted to make sure that if a product we can potentially claim 10 things, we'll probably fact check and put 5 out of those 10 things. We have a very strong internal control for that. And then of late, we've seen that there's a very active startup ecosystem, which has been great for innovation and creating new categories. But I think there's been a bit of overzealousness with the claim side of things. And eventually, as those businesses mature, you'd see regulations come in, they'd come to you, you'd filter down those claims and make it better. But I think, to be fair, as a brand, especially with the amount of food activism that's happening, you've got bloggers, you've got our regulatory authority, which has been extremely supportive in understanding claims, as well as independent NGOs. So we try and make sure that we are on the higher side of, say, some of the functionally negative things. So if our product has lesser fat, we'll put more fat on the label. If our product has more protein, we'll put relatively lesser on the label. And as a result, what happens is that we've had independent fact checks. So there are NGOs like Consumer Voice, which have done independent tests, and they came back saying ours was the most accurate label in the entire oats category, for example. So we make sure that there's long-term value, because as a family-run business, we are here for the long run. So we are able to deliver value, day in, day out. And the other thing which we're very clear about is that I think the intent of engineering claims or over-exaggerating claims, thanks to social media, the amount of digital content we are consuming now has, gone significantly lower. Now I think consumers are able to discern to some degree. There's a lot of research available on, what's good for you, what's not. Specifically with claims around no added sugar also, there's a lot of engineering that has happened. So our take on a brand is that we want to be A, on the right side of the law. That's extremely important. And B, even if the law permits it, does not make it good enough for us to do it. So to give an example, the antioxidant used to preserve freshness in breakfast cereals commonly used in India was INS 320, which is BHA. Now, BHA has been allowed in many countries. It was banned in Japan since 1958 for being a suspect carcinogen. As a brand, we've never used BHA. We've used something which is mixed tocopherols and soya tocopherols, which is soya-based. It is a vitamin E derivative. It's natural. Now, the delta between a BHA, which would sell at 250 rupees a kilo, and a tocopherol is something at 5,000 rupees a kilo. But we pretty much push the idea that we don't want to put INS 320. And what we've seen is today, breakfast cereals as a category has many startups claiming they don't have INS 320 as a USP. And also large multinationals who were using BHA as a primary ingredient have moved to 306B. So I think there's an entire move that one can push if you're on the right side of the things conceptually, and if your intent is to do something good. Similarly, in no added sugar, you could add a bunch of things, and there's no refined sugar happening. There's no, there are brands which are adding FOS, and we had that, conversation backstage where there are ingredients which are coming. Many of them are better for you, but they may not technically even fall within the legal norms of being no added sugar. Obviously, the regulations also catching up. And hence one has to be very, very conscious putting this across, because today's time of activism, it just takes one move to actually fact check a label, right? So for a brand, it's always better to be on the right side of the regulation and the right side of the ethical side of making sure that your claims are, true to what they are.
I think you've made a couple of excellent points. I think one thing that I would like to add over there today, FSSAI as a law is still a very young law. It's evolving, at a very rapid rate. What I've seen today is most brands are actually not worried that FSSAI will catch them doing something wrong. It is actually the consumer that will actually catch you doing something wrong. FSSAI honestly doesn't have the bandwidth to check each and every product, each and every SKU that's in the market, right? But your consumers will. There are a lot of bloggers, a lot of influencers who've gotten into the space, who've made it more popular, who've made it almost cool to find errors and put it online. But I think this is overall helping the overall ecosystem get better, right? So today at Equinox, we work with almost about 85,000 customers. The mindset that people had about 10 years ago versus the mindset our founders is now is so different. 10 years ago, it was like, hey, what is the most minimal thing I can do and get away? Or can I manage it without actually, doing the test or without actually checking the label? Can I manage FSSAI? That used to be the mindset. Today's founders' mindset is before the even product is produced, they're like, we want to be 100% compliant because they're looking at scale, they're looking at brand. They do not want to bribe people. They want to do it the right way. So I think that mindset has been a great, great factor, right? Again, in the backstage, we're actually talking about some innovation that you're doing, right? And whenever brands innovate, maybe outside their line of business, many times they have to depend on third-party manufacturers. Tanul, I'll bring you in on this, right? So as a co-founder of Innobev, you will be dealing with so many B2B companies, right? And as a third-party manufacturer, what do you think these companies are looking for, and how do you convey your USPs to these companies?
So, Ashwin, we also work with third-party manufacturers. How we are different from anyone is that the formulations, the liquid or let's say the powder inside a particular product is owned by our organization, and we rely on these third-party manufacturers. So as of now, let's say we work with more than 14 co-packers at the moment, and dairy is one of the most crucial one where we face a lot of challenge in, let's say, adulteration, the product going right, the product can get contaminated really, really fast. So what we do as an organization is, and sometimes even we go above what our customer really needs from us, is that one, emotionally, what we don't feed to ourselves or what we can't feed at our home, we don't sell it to anyone else. So there are multiple ingredients. We took a call when we started Innobev that we are never gonna use multiple thickeners, preservatives, colloids, just to make the beverage tasty. We want to do it the way it could have been done in our home kitchen, and then we try to replicate it in our factory. Second is, when we produce it at co-packers, we try to do multiple audits through ourselves or through our customers to ensure that we comply to the highest quality standards. And during these audits, we perform multiple CIPs to eliminate cross-contaminations, because we majorly deal in beverages. And also every ingredient, what we do, we get it cross-checked with third-party labs, and the finished product cross-checked with another third-party lab to double-check the results, because what we put in is actually converting into the real product or not, and is what we put in the product as a final product, does it really relate to the ingredients we have used so far?
I was at your stall right now and I saw a lot of new innovation and a lot of new technologies being used. So I was really inspired. Aayushi, that brings me to the next point. Like today, how are you using innovation and technology to convey your product benefits and the importance of cold press oil and newer things? How are you using technology to convey this to customers?
Right. No, this is a very interesting question, because on labels we get, very, very less space to convey a lot of things, and people generally don't read that much. People are, in this age of social media, people want to understand everything in like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So we are doing a lot of things. First is that, so there is a specific QR code on every label, and it directs to the test reports of that particular batch that the customer is getting. And within the test reports also, like earlier, 4 years ago when we were doing it, we were not getting any kind of scans or anything. So one is like, how do you educate people ki you should look at the test reports? So that we are doing via our WhatsApp communication flows or kind of founder videos on Instagram and Facebook. And then second is, once they are actually going on the test reports, they don't know how to read it or what is the significance of those chemical parameters. So along with that, we are placing notes that, these are the 5 parameters which are adulteration parameters, for example. These are the next 8-10 parameters which are set by FSSAI, that your acid value should be less than 4, or what should be the FFA content in your oil, etc. So we are explaining each of that. Other than that, like we are doing a lot of content with our in-house R&D head, our food scientist. So she kind of explains each and everything about starting from the seed to the end product. And in terms of content, I think these days a lot of founders themselves are coming out, because who better than the founder himself or herself can explain the product to people. So so we are doing a lot of live videos or videos from our manufacturing units or from the village, from where we are procuring these products, along with our manufacturers also, right? So we also work with third-party manufacturers, and along with them, we are doing a lot of such content. And apart from this, I think these days, because you have ChatGPT and also a lot of tools that will help you design and fast the process of making content and videos in general. So we can leverage all of that content, all of these tools, and can do this process very, very fast.
I'm glad you brought up ChatGPT. I don't think any conversation nowadays is complete without AI coming in. And a lot of people always ask me like, hey, how is AI going to help in food? Content is, I think, a great way. So I also do a lot of content for Equinox Labs. Many a times the joke is, the other day I met somebody who I've known for a long time, but I've not met them in a year. They asked me, "Oh, are you still working at Equinox?" I said, "Yeah, why?" They're like, "Oh, I thought you became a full-time content creator," because my team lands up putting videos of me on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I do a podcast, so they take videos from there. So a 1 hour podcast, I'll actually create content for about 2-3 weeks, right? All three of your products and many of the products that you get done are something I consume on a daily basis. But there is one product that I use more than anyone else's, which is Rage Coffee. And that's how my day starts, by the way. So Bharat, thank you for joining us. I know it's a little late, but better late than never. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Bharat, my question is to you. Today, you target millennials and Gen Zs. That's your main target audience. How are you using your labeling and marketing strategies to educate this audience on, the health and lifestyle benefits of a functional coffee?
So when we started, I think the idea of clean labels or generally talking about some of these sourcing or manufacturing techniques that, whatever you're doing different was not followed. Like it was not something that was very common, but the trend had kind of taken prominence in more mature markets. So, in North America, for example, or in some European markets, you would see that they are talking about how they are making the product on the label itself, and where they were sourcing from, why they were different. So I think just kind of picking up from that, and also now people are reading labels in India. Like we have a long way to go, but still we've started to talk about it. But I have been reading labels since I was a kid, because in my family, my dad and my mom did not consume, like I did not have soda for, I think, till I was 17, 18. There was no soda, there was no sugar, there was no maida, very, very less maida. So just generally my life, I was one of those people. I was the consumer of a product that, you read the label, you understand kitna hai, kya hai, you can make your judgments better. But I think so it kind of helped me in defining that. So what we did with Rage, and you would not believe we've changed the design. The content of the label is still 95% of what we started with in 2019. So we spoke about all the ingredients. So that's something, what each of these ingredients mean. Because it was a little ahead of its time, little complicated product, coffee with nutraceuticals, and it was not kind of something that was very common. The other thing was we spoke, even today if you take out a Rage label, you will see these 6 pointers of why we are different. So why the crystallization method, some of these other things of what it will do to you, what are some of the health benefits of drinking coffee, where are we sourcing from. So I think all of those things really talk to the consumer. Today, it's more important than ever, and I think we're just getting started. From what I see as the future of food, the more complicated the label is, like not complicated in the sense where you're just talking too much, but the more confusing the label is to the end consumer with all that jargon and all of that claims that people make, I think the less worth the consumers of tomorrow will see in such labels.
I think talking of confusing labels, Aditya, my next question is to you. Today, Bagrry exports to 60 plus countries, if I'm not mistaken, right? And each country has unique regulations. How do you manage such a diverse requirement of labeling across so many countries, while being mindful of your vision? Because obviously you want to communicate, what you want the product to be, and you want that to, be seen by the customer. But how do you manage that and transparent food practices across so many countries?
Great. So, Ashwin, I think that's a very interesting question. Again, I think there are two aspects to it. One is, the execution of labeling compliance. I think that to some degree is, hard, but relatively the easy part, which is basically where we take the labeling requirement and whatever is required. If there's an MOQ which is large enough, you can create packaging which is unique for that country. If it's an MOQ which is low, typically you stick on a label. Fortunately, many of the Asian countries, Indian packaging is now getting, widely accepted. So I think that's been the relatively easier part, and there are compliance teams and people who can help us do that. The more pertinent part is actually to make sure that your product recipes and the ethos with which we're doing things is consistent whether it's a product, in India in a different channel. So what we sell in, say, the GT stores, or what we're selling in the northeast of India versus, say, the army stores, or say in any other part of the world, the brand messaging is consistent in terms of what we deliver, and we're very clear about the reason we exist. And a lot of that chatter, in fact, on the panels already happened. So as a brand, we're very clear that we exist because of the ability to hook consumers with a repeat. So we've been a brand of the 90s. At that point of time, we did very little or close to zero marketing work. We put a product out there. Consumers liked what we had to offer. They recommended it to other people, and we pretty much grew region to region, shelf to shelf by word of mouth. And that importance of making sure that you create a product where you're having that impact, the customer wants to, buy us again. More importantly, they feel that this is a part of their lifestyle, which, they'd want us to associate with. That's very important. I relate with what Bharat said about the label, because as a family, my dad kept a magnifying glass. That the sole purpose of that glass was to read labels. As kids, we were given measured drops of ketchup, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drops, and that's it. And as a family, we pretty much want to make sure that whatever we make, we are consuming ourselves. So my kids consume pretty much everything we make. My family consumes everything we make. We would want that the ethos of what we are consuming goes on to our products as well. So I think carrying that forward, because in international markets, different countries have different, price thresholds, taste thresholds. Then as a brand, you have to go back and say that, okay, I don't want to change our purpose here. We'll find ways to, match their requirements without losing our identity. Because eventually, if you grow in that geography, you will find that the brand meaning is very different. So that's something which is, I think, the harder part.
So I just learned 2 things from both of you. One is both of you as growing up, you all read labels and measured drops of ketchup. I'm going to take back that to my kids, like 1, 2, 3. That's going to be interesting, right? And I think the second part you touched upon, which was I found very interesting, was today other countries are accepting FSSAI approved labels, because I think FSSAI set a certain benchmark today, which is higher than many of the other countries. So when you're starting out and you see that benchmark, many people think, oh, in India, why do we need to comply to all this? But as a country, if you want to be better, we have to be better, right? It's as simple as that. Tanul, this brings me to FSSAI compliances, right? Today, how are you managing quality and all the compliances for all the brands that you work with? What are the steps that you guys are taking?
So, Ashwin, we work across multiple categories, starting from, let's say, water-based beverages to carbonated beverages in different categories. And in the early days when we started off, we were practically trying to do it ourselves because the requirements were not very strict and stringent. But nowadays, the way FSSAI is upgrading the mechanism, it has practically become to do it in-house. So we try to rely on partners like you and other similar companies to help us comply with the regulatory standards. But when we communicate it to our customers, we also need to be pro on the game. So we keep following FSSAI websites, keep reading their documents, and we have maintained a basic one which we share with our customers when they design the label. But practically, we need to rely on you to help us do that.
So I think one challenge that I see with FSSAI, right, and I'm a national advisor to them, and this is something I also keep telling them. Every week, there are new updates coming out, right? And as people from the food industry, today, how many of you know in the last 1 month, how many updates have come out from FSSAI that impact your business? How many of you know all the updates? That's what I thought, right? So this is a very unique challenge because FSSAI, since it's a young law, which is a good thing, it's also a bad thing because they're continuously coming out with new updates, right? We were forced to create something, right? It's called Compliance Cloud. Because a lot of customers like you used to come to me and be like, "Arey, 3 months ago this new update came out, you didn't tell me." And unfortunately, since it's a young law, there are updates coming out, right? And people who I know personally used to take it like, "Arey, you didn't call me and tell me." I'm like, "Yeah, we serve so many customers. I can't call each one and say that." We were forced to create a product for just keeping people updated, which is I found a little funny.
I'll give you an example. 2 years back, we were trying to do a mushroom-based nutraceutical, and FSSAI does not have any law or let's say standards for mushrooms. And now it's a very interesting case. So I myself went to FSSAI office, And we were losing out that customer because we had a huge pressure that we want to launch it, right? And now what happened is I walked into the FSSAI office and the guy said, the first thing I read is your emergency is not my exigency. And he's practically right, because it's my emergency, my customer needs it, right? Now the second thing is the guy said, Tanul, okay, we don't have it in specified product, but let me try to help you out because you are under pressure. Now he said, okay, we'll refer to the guidelines of fungi, fruits and vegetables 4.2.2. Fine. So do you meet these criteria of extract? I said, sir, yes, we meet it. Now, okay, now you can sell it as fruit and vegetable. So I said, sir, can you give it to me in writing that I am meeting it? Now you said, then the guy said, Tanul, you need to refer to Directorate of Mushroom Solon that do we consider this as edible fungi? Now the Directorate of Mushroom till date has not released a list of their edible fungi. So somehow we reached to the director and the guy said, Tanul will give you an email that we will consider this as edible fungi. So we went to FSSAI and said, can you give it to us in writing? The guy said, no. I said that, how do we convince the customer? Bole, this is the book. Maine kaha, but can you at least tell me whether you will come behind me if I put it and find it? No, that we can still do. So then we still needed to wait for an year, get it under a non-specified product. So sometime even while FSSAI is upgrading their system and changing day by day, I also feel that they at the same time has not been able to understand the requirements of the brands, that what they actually need and how the consumers. So I still feel there's a long way to go between FSSAI manufacturers and the consumers.
Bharat, have you come across any challenges with FSSAI, or is there something that you would want FSSAI as a body to change?
I think since we started, there's already been tremendous progress in the last 6 years. I think there has been a 180-degree shift in the way they work, the way they approach to problems, and I'm very glad that they're very receptive to any sort of feedback that you give them. And I also regularly meet some of those people there in the management. The hard fact is, as Tanul also mentioned, is that they're slow. But I love that your this urgency is not my excellence. So I think it's a very, very critical part of the fabric of the society, that what people are consuming, there's enough research, there's enough evidence to say that it's safe to consume, and it's increasingly becoming more important because all the, sorry to say, shit that's being served to people from all kinds of channels. It's every maybe a week or 10 days I come across somebody who tells me, yaar, kya bech diya hame online inhone, because mostly all of those people who are scrupulous are selling online, and it's easy to kind of pass the entire process there. मतलब इतना ज़्यादा सुनने को मिलता है ना कि there is some or the other problem in my food product. In fact, a lot of people in and around me, in my family now, they think we cannot trust these products. We don't trust the online channel only now, because somebody, once in a blue moon, they got something really, and that's the consumer. That's an average consumer who thinks like that. यार ये channel ही खराब होएगा, क्या पता they're not doing, and which is true. If you get bad stuff from, let's say, or some spoiled stuff from some channel, maybe you are one on a million customer, but you're still one of them, right? आपको कुछ हो जाएगा, कुछ कर दिया, मतलब क्या करोगे फिर आप? The point is that I think they have to do what they have to do, but they can do better with speed. That's the only feedback that I have. But when we started with all the ingredients, that we definitely made sure that every ingredient is listed. We also started with slightly unorthodox ingredients, rhodiola rosea, panax ginseng, ginkgo biloba. All of these things are not commonly used. Today they are more common in the supplement space, but for hardcore off-the-shelf FMCG product in your daily use, not sold as a supplement, it was not something that was very common.
Also, I think, Aditya also mentioned the quality of ingredient that is going, like the antioxidant 250 rupees versus 5,000 rupees. Now, how would a consumer know about it, whether I should buy a Bagrry's or any other product in the market? So some kind of grading in that sense should be there.
So I think, if I add to what's been said on the table, firstly, if we look at FSSAI as a regulator, and if I see the last decade, especially since we're in 2014, we had an episode where a leading food brand was banned, and we had at that point of time, I'm sure Ashwin you'd be aware of the product approval process. So we've gone through that hoop where every formulation had to be approved in 2014, and from that, obviously things have come a long way, and we've faced similar challenges to what Aayushi also mentioned. Interestingly, the antioxidant we used was harder to find harmonization with codex for, but the BHA was harmonized, and we said that we don't want to use it, so we had to go back to FSSAI and say that please add this to a safe antioxidant for breakfast cereals, and that was done. And I think there's a lot of work at the back end happening for harmonization with global laws like codex. I think they have various events. It's a very progressive organization now, and in every category, in every sector, I think regulation always follows innovation. So if there's a new nutraceutical ingredient or a new food ingredient, their role is to protect the consumer, and that's what they're going for, and that's why there are emergencies, not their exigency, because they're just centered around the consumer side of things, and which is absolutely fair. But eventually, as innovations and categories build up, like we did not have Nutra as a deep category. We didn't have so many different variants in breakfast cereal which have come up, or there was ghee as a category which is developed. So I think regulations will follow and will get harmonized. In fact, the biggest challenge which you spoke about was the fact that the frequency of change, and that has a huge impact on packing material. I'm sure brands have had to let go of packing material over the last few years, large brands, small brands. For startups, it's horrible because each batch of packing material is gold. I believe there's a lot of representation, and today there's another regulatory body apart from FSSAI, which is legal metrology. So I think they've given a soft confirmation today verbally saying that they will do an annual notification of all regulatory changes together, which will be a big win because then all your changes will happen once a year. I think that's what a lot of the sector was pushing for, that you don't do changes independently, because FSSAI is doing one thing, metrology is doing another thing, then you had maybe some other regulation that comes out for dairy or something else. So I think that's getting more and more harmonized. There's more interdepartment coordination, but these things will take time.
Any challenges that you faced or any recommendations that you would have for FSSAI?
No, I think as he has also mentioned metrology, we have a lot of challenges with the metrology department. I think it will be good if they come up with some kind of software, etc., where we can just put our labels and check whether it follows all the compliances or not. Then they going into some channel's warehouse and then picking up our products and then putting like 2 lakh rupees fine for so some kind of technology probably.
So I don't know if FSSAI is doing it. We are working on that. So we are actually, we have an in-house tech team, and one of my biggest requests to them was, can we create a tool in which today we offer this as a service, so there are humans who will check this, right? But can we, my team is actually working, can we create a tool where you upload your PDF of your label and it will instantly tell you like, hey, these are the 6 things which are missing, or hey, you need to probably change this, or you probably can, or maybe in something you can claim that you're not using, looking at your ingredient label. So that's something that we're working on. Yesterday I was talking to a founder who was into protein powders, right? I think they're the 3rd or 4th largest in the country. And he was telling me, he's like, Ashwin, I want to create a test which my consumers can buy to check the quality of protein. I was like, why? Why would they want to do that? He's like, you have no idea how much spurious protein is being sold. He's like, for every 5 boxes, 2 boxes will not be matching the claim, right? And I was like, why are you so sure? He's like, no, we get everything tested, so I'm sure of what we are putting in, but I'm very sure the guys, are selling online, there's no repercussion. They launch a brand online, tomorrow FSSAI finds them, shuts them down, 10 days later they launch a new brand, right? So they're not really scared of the law. One of the recommendations that I've been talking to FSSAI is linking this to the FSSAI license and not just the brand. That was one. And 2, like if I've studied food safety in many countries, I've advised a couple of countries as well. What I really like about many countries is, in the US, a normal consumer will never feel the need to test a brand that's already on the shelf. In India, apparently that is a need, right? And I thought that is something that we can do better at. We as an industry can raise the bar. If we do better, then the brands who are not doing the right thing can go away. and FSSAI needs to be a lot more stricter with what is happening. So guys, this is going to be our last question across the board. In 1 or 2 sentences, what advice would you give somebody who's entering the food space? Then let's start with you. 1 or 2 sentences, what advice would you give somebody entering the food space on how quality meets consciousness?
That's difficult, but what advice would I give is that whatever you want us to do, let's say if you want us to create a nutraceutical product, or let's say a functional beverage or a refreshing beverage, whatever ingredients you use us to put it, there should be right reasons to do it, right? So recently we walked out with a startup and the founder came up with a very saying that, Tanul, I have consumed sugar-based beverage and without sugar-based beverage a year and a year without. And the only thing I realized is that I need carbonation to quench my thirst between February to July, because that time the summer is at the peak. So I need to do something carbonated, but it needs to be without sugar, but it needs to have some calories so that your tongues get some things, your thirst gets quenched. So I guess that's the only thing. Do it for the right reasons.
Excellent. Aayushi?
No, I think just speaking from the lens of a very new person entering this industry, like doing it for the first time, I think for us, it took a lot of time to understand quality, like what are the different parameters that will actually affect your, shelf life or deteriorate or your quality over time. So having those right things in place from the starting, like having those people within your organization is very important. And apart from that, whoever you are working with, the third-party manufacturers, etc., having a clear set of ethos and why this product, why this brand, and these ethos should also resonate with the people that you are working on, because ultimately you have to trust those people, right? So choosing the right people along with your ethos, I think these are the 2 most important.
Aditya?
So, personally, I feel this is probably one of the most exciting times to, start out. And if I look at the last decade, I think there's been tremendous amount of leaps in terms of, consumers willing to try new things and new brands. If you look at ourselves as consumers, I'm sure most of us have switched what would be considered a brand that we were probably thinking, spending a lifetime with. So I think that's a huge opportunity. On the other hand, there's a lot of clutter in terms of the number of options for each thing. So I think having a razor sharp purpose as to why we exist, and similar to what Aayushi also mentioned, why do as a consumer I be buying you? I think that relationship is extremely important, because otherwise you'd be one of the many protein brands on the shelf or food brands on the shelf. What do I make as a difference to my customer's life? And sticking true to that, because it's not about the trial. You'll get entry today, you can list in e-commerce and get entry. It's about the repeat and whether consumers are willing to buy you again. I think that's key.
Love it. Bharat, your thoughts?
I think one should do the right thing. Like if you will not serve that to your family members, don't sell it to anyone. I think that will solve a lot of problems. The other thing is a lot of early stage, especially new entrants. So there are 2 kinds, right? There's people who don't know about the food business. They're entering it because of passion. They're entering it because they really find some gaps. If you're coming from that place, the less you know, the better it is, I feel, because it will really help you serve some products to the customers that will really be differentiated, and also they will come from a place of honesty. There's so many examples around us. If you don't know you need a stabilizer, I mean, you can do without it. In some cases, if you don't want a 12-month shelf life, can you build something in a channel or in a model that can give a 3-month shelf life without any of the preservatives? So all of those things, that's for the new guys. I think where the real need is the enterprise guys, the big guys, like all of the large FMCG companies, all CPG companies across the world are changing. And in India, I still feel there's a long way to go. वो गुमराह कर रहे हैं आज भी customer को. तो वो कैसे रोका जाए? I think most of the effort that I see in the next 4-5 years will go in trying to bridge this gap. Profits over honesty, or honesty over profits.
So over the last decade, I've interacted with thousands of food founders, right? And one thing I've studied is all the brands that have been successful have done two things right. One, they have focused on their quality very deeply. If FSI requirement is here, they are doing this. And second, they have relied very heavily on transparency and trust. Because as Aditya is mentioning, you're not successful if somebody buys your product the first time, tries you the first time, you can give it out for free, you can get samples. The excitement of first time is there. You're really successful if your customer keeps looking out for you and comes back to you again and again and again and again. That's when your real success lies, right? So if you're, even after the third thing by the way, for being successful, your marketing and sales have to be really good. But marketing and sales can only work if your product and your communication, your packaging and your overall brand is perceived in the right way. Thank you for all the panelists for coming here and sharing your knowledge. Thank you all of you for sitting so patiently and listening to all of us. Do we have time for Q&A or we don't have time for? We're out of time for Q&A. I'm so sorry, we're out of time for Q&A. But in case you have any questions for any of the panelists, we'll be here or outside. Please do come and ask us. You spent the last 45 minutes listening to all of us speak. I'm hoping you've learned something in all that time. Please go apply whatever you learned in your life, in your business, and that's how you're going to become successful. None of us are going to succeed from things that we learn from ourselves. We are always going to succeed from things that we learn from others. That's the fastest way to progress. Thank you all for being a very patient audience.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. We'll take exactly 2 more minutes of yours. Ladies and gentlemen, absolutely very stunning and interesting discussion we've had, and I must congratulate all of them here for not just bringing in forward the best of products, interesting products, but also bringing forward some very interesting ideas. And I must say that you've also acted as an agent of how consumers should be aware. Now and then we have talked about how we understand FSSAI, and we understand that we have common challenges and of course common goals as well, that we have better products, and we have been emphasizing on about how quality should be the main goal, the main aspect in whatever we bring forward in the society at large. Thank you once again. And it's in platforms like this where, such discussions can play as a catalyst in bringing in together the world of manufacturers, brands, and also the consumers. We must thank, ladies and gentlemen, a huge amount of applaud for something which is so interesting. We can bring in some more energy. Let's put our hands together, because these ideation, when it goes across, is also acting as an element for our further good as an economy. May I quickly request Akanksha from the CMPL Expo, who is going to be here to present the mementos. Once again, a big thank you to all the speakers. We would like to present a memento to Mr. Tanul Rustagi. Thank you so much for coming in here and also sharing your own experiences, more than just the ideation, but also your own experiences. Akanksha, may I request you to kindly present a memento to Tanul Rustagi. तालियां जब बजती हैं तो लगता है कि एक encouragement है, लगता है सब साथ हैं. So let's keep that energy on. Akanksha, once again, may I request you to now present a memento to Aayushi. Aayushi, thank you so much for bringing in your own personal notes and sharing your thoughts and ideas with it. Very interesting. Thank you once again. एक बार जोरदार तालियों के साथ our moderator of the session. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for making it so interesting and very lively. I must say how candidly you put all the points in together, relating one to another. Thank you, Ashwin, the moderator of the session. And we also thank Aditya. Aditya, thank you bringing in your personal notes and experiences and sharing it with us. Once again, a huge round of applause to Aditya. And we were joined by Bharat. Bharat, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. Very interesting points and notes from your end. We'd like to quickly capture this moment. May I request you all to kindly step forward for a group photograph, not just to capture it in our lenses, but of course in our memories as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you've also been a great source of energy for us. Akanksha, may I request you to be in the frame as well? We could have really had it a little more longer with more Q&A, but I'm afraid we're running out of time. Our inaugural got a little delayed, but we don't want to delay it any further. So we can always catch up offline and discuss during our networking breaks with our distinguished speakers.